Hello guys, welcome to the Trading Parrot. I'm starting to see some interesting evidence that the price might make a small pump to 72, 73K from where we are. I'm also going to show you how slowly but steadily I'm seeing a rotation into Ethereum from Bitcoin. We're going to have a look at the technicals and the charts as usual. Guys, if you like this type of content, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel, hit the notification bell to get notified every time I put out one of these videos. And if you want to support the channel, watch the video until the very end and leave a comment down below. That's really helping the channel to continue growing. As you can see on the monthly, we have almost undone all the damage of April. During May, we're just a few days away to close this candle like this. As I mentioned in the past, reverting at least 50% of the damage of April will be considered bullish in the context that we are still within the summertime, which tends to be the time for cryptocurrencies to take a pullback. If we want the most bullish close ever, then we probably want to close above the all-time high from the previous cycle. And closing above that will take us into the bananas territory that many people talk about. If we look at the daily for the past couple of weeks, we have been looking at the point of control as a key level of resistance that keeps us 3 days here, 1 day here, 3 days here, and we finally overcome. Once we reach 71.5, we say that it's very likely that we were going to come back and retest that point of control. The price has done partially that. I'm saying partially because we did 2 retests of this, which are perfect, but we haven't had a higher high above this level of 71.5 yet. In this video, we're going to look some evidence that people are expecting the price to go above 71. In fact, in the order book, there are some sneaky orders located at around here, and I'm going to share how big those orders are, how much they are spread away, and I'll share my take on whether I think that's manipulation. The fear and greed index has reduced from 76 to 75. That is just 1 point down, but it takes us out from the extreme greed area. Or breakout from the inverse head and shoulders patterns applied to the greed and fear index that we forecasted around mid-May has broken out and now is still in the area of consolidation above the breakout. The target is to get to the highest 80s, and so far there's no indication that has been invalidated. So we will continue to monitor this pattern in this channel. I remind you that any time that something changes substantial and relevant in this market, I share it immediately on my Twitter account. My handle is Trading Parrot. Make sure that you're following me also there with notification bell. As you can see, the structure after the breakout on Bitcoin still looks pretty healthy. We have higher highs and higher lows. We are just coming out from a new higher low, and we should be expecting right now continuation like this. If the trend hasn't been broken, the trend is your friend. So the highest likelihood is for the price to reach these highs. So now in preparation for this expectation, it's typical that people start placing their bets on shorting this level just because the price has been doing pretty much the same this period here. So whether the price will reach that and we allow them to short it like this, or if the price could ignite a short squeeze and go way beyond expected, that is to be seen. But I open the door for both scenarios. And there's a third scenario, which might mean that we don't do a high here and we break the structure. If we went to 64, that will mean that this low got broken, and then the daily, and from the point of view of ICT, that is a change of character, a break of structure, in fact, and that will put the scenario of reaching these highs as a less likely outcome. I mentioned that we might be producing a CME gap because we closed on CME markets on Friday at $69 and $80, and we've been constantly through the weekend going higher than this and lower than this. So I will consider the CME gap no longer to be an opportunity. Let's look at the Bitcoin on the daily. I remind you that I said that if we lose the white line or the red line, we could be initiating a channel to the downside, and that could be triggered if there is a strong rotation into Ethereum with the expectation of higher prices. We can see that that's not yet the case. The price has been bouncing decently here from this level of support, the white line, We haven't done a higher high yet, so I will say it's a period of indecision. What I wouldn't like to see is that the price breaks here, because that will complete a head and shoulder right about that. If it breaks below, it could easily come to the 43 level. If we hold here, I'm expecting a new high, especially if we start touching those levels of liquidations that have been accumulated for 3 months. I will show you that later in the video. On the 4-hour, we broke out on Friday at 2 p.m., but the breakout has been very mild, restricted by this level of resistance that we also recognized during that video. So far, we haven't been able to go beyond this point. I mentioned it's a mixed bag in terms of sentiment for me, because we broke below the support, and then we are having immediately a bullish breakout here right in front of this resistance, constrained right now on the 4-hour by this big order block. Notice how big was this pullback here, and that's why there is liquidity, yet that is bearish right there. For our scenario of going to 73, we're going to have to overcome this level of liquidity right there. And so far, we have double top forming there. So hopefully we get a third attempt and we break, and we don't get rejected and lose this trend line either, because that's going to take us into the bearish scenario. You can see Ethereum, it's looking slightly better than Bitcoin right now, although it has broken this level of support and currently is coming back up from there. It's above the point of control, which is bullish, but we will really have to see if we can get beyond this point, instead of going for our 32K target that we've been discussing in the previous videos. And that doesn't mean that I'm in the long term bearish on Ethereum. I'm just expecting some turbulences in the next coming months, just because of two factors. The ETF is still not implemented, is still not live. People cannot trade with the new ETF yet. It might take, in the best case scenario, 2 weeks. And at the same time, we need to see how big is going to be the impact of the inflows in Grayscale. They own a crazy amount of Ethereum and the fees are higher, so it could have a similar effect that it did when the Bitcoin ETF went live, which in fact affected the space. This particular pump that we are seeing during the weekend might have also something to do with the speech from Trump around 8 hours ago that went viral on Twitter, where he says that is absolutely all in on cryptocurrencies, on self-custody, and that if he gets elected, he won't allow any sort of CBDCs. On the Ethereum BTC pair, we were monitoring the formation of a head and shoulders. Luckily, that formation never completed, and at the moment we can see that it's completely invalidated. The right shoulder is way higher than the left shoulder. Still on the 4-hour, the momentum going lower, and I will expect strong resistance at the level of 71 RSI on the 4-hour, with a potential new rejection and doing lower lows. This is again just purely based on the fundamentals and the timing in the market for that Ethereum ETF. Total Free, representing the alts here, is doing something very similar to Bitcoin on the 4-hour. As you can see, this is BTC and this is Total Free, so very similar story. Broke out the momentum to the downside. We printed a double bottom, and that had enough energy to come for a retest of this trend line and getting rejected right now. BTC, on the other hand, has seen multiple rejections, but it continues in a trajectory against the median here coming from the TTP RSI using percentiles, and is being rejected by that right now. On the weekly, we continue our trajectory after the bullish crossover, so that is still bullish, and we are progressing as well towards our target of finding a lower high for the RSI weekly, which eventually is going to help us forming this parallel channel to recognize when we are finding a high quality reversal point for the weekly. Make sure that you're following me in my channel, because I will be the first one to tell you once I recognize that we have a high quality reversal point for the weekly. Even though we have reversed here and we got so close to making an all-time high on the weekly, as we forecasted, we were expecting to get to this area and we still haven't done it. I think we have a chance this week to do that, but I would like to see the weekly at least closing above the all-time high to not leave this candle, which is still a candle of rejection. If you ask me, you have 50% of rejection and 50% of gains. The things that continue to amaze me in terms of bullishness of the current state of the market against the odds of going lower are that the ratio remains at 0.4, which means that there's still plenty of big whales, large holders that are withdrawing from exchanges, and long-term holders are currently resuming their trajectory to the upside. Still not a higher high here, but you can see that this small time where there was some selling now has been reverted. And the opposite for the short-term holders that are currently starting to sell. They usually do the wrong thing at the worst time. If you don't know what to do ever, at least do what the long-term holders are doing and what the large holders are doing as well, even if you don't have any clue about technical analysis. It's not financial advice, and you always have to keep an eye on the macroeconomy, on things that are even more important than just what big whales on Bitcoin are doing. Sure, but compared to not monitoring anything and not having a clue and buying just tops and selling bottoms, I think is still an upgrade. Here we are looking again at these two potential targets of 70.6 and 72K. There's a slight leftover at almost 73, is at 72.8. And on material indicators, you can see that that spans a little bit higher. You have 71 with 20 million, 73, and then even 75. But that's on the weekly. Let's go to the monthly. And yes, it spans up to 75K. So that's pretty interesting. Let's reduce the percentiles, and you can see that they are all accumulated as selling pressure right there. So whether the price is going to manage to break above all of this or not, that's going to be really interesting. But we can see that the purple whales are right now pushing and leaning towards a new high. The same goes with the largest whales in brown here. So let's go to the order book and let's see in real time what's going on. You can see that there are real-time orders at 73.2 for 800, at 72 for 900, and then we have smaller orders at 71 for 400, 300, and 452. Below the price, there is not that much, and the only significant level relative to the rest of them is 500 at 65.8. The delta is in the red, meaning that the shorts are risking getting liquidated more than the longs, just by 150, which is not necessarily a massive delta. And you can see where are we targeting right now. This is liquidity from 3 months, so that's why they are getting excited that they might be able to reach these highs and take it. This spans all the way up until 75 and then starts fading away into the 80s. There is liquidity to downside. There is at 64.4. That's very close to that 65 where we see some orders as well. But relative to the reds that we have here is almost nothing. There's also 60K, which some people are thinking that if we see a rejection, we could fall this down as well. The biggest liquidity on the downside is 56K, so that stays the same. Guys, keep an eye on my copied trading bolts. The link is in the description. And if you want to trade in the market, consider using a decent exchange like OKX that is packed with features. And the link in the description offers a price pool of up to $60,000. If you don't have access to OKX, consider looking into my BinkX link in the description, which is also offering 6.2K in USDT rewards. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye bye.